One of the most important laws ever passed in New Orleans was its very first law. It was a law called Code Noir, and in 1724 came out with a law that said you couldn't torture slaves, you had to feed them, you had to clothe them, and you even had to get them Sundays off as long as they practiced Catholicism. These led to these slaves in the Tremere neighborhood, a particular part called Congo Square. And every Sunday after church, they were allowed to go get their African drums, go to Congo Square, dance and play music all day. Now I want you to realize how crazy an idea this was. Imagine you were a slave back then, you lived outside New Orleans and you tried to play African drum. That would probably be the last day on earth for you, right? So African music, African rhythms, and language was outlawed every other place other than New Orleans. That's why they began to call New Orleans the most African city in the Americas. And because this law was so different, things began to come from it. Something that came from it was something called a placé. Basically, it was an arrangement between a young French Creole man and a young mulatto woman, half French and half African woman. It was said he could invite her to a party at the Bourbon Orleans Hotel on the second floor. And while there, after she's all dressed up, he'd formally ask her to be his placé, basically mistress for life, concubine, however you want to put it. Imagine this white Creole Frenchman would have a white wife and white children, but at times he might have this extended family with the mulatto woman and colored children. Because this was going on so much, and so many children were being born from this arrangement, New Orleans became the place that had the largest free people of color in the South. And at times, some of these young men born from these arrangements had some privileges, affluence, money. Sometimes they even given privileges musically. It was said that some of these young colored Creole men would be sent to Paris to study classical music, and they'd come back to New Orleans as some of the best classical musicians in the world. And I want you to just imagine New Orleans in the 1700s and 1800s. It was a very opera theater city. Every night of the week you could go to a ball. Young ladies, you got in free. Guys, you're gonna have to pay a little bit of money to get in. But at some point in time, all this music cultivated where people knew that New Orleans was a classical, opera-oriented city. And this lasted all the way up into the late 1890s when, boom, it all changed for the people of New Orleans. And it's because of a law called Jim Crow. Jim Crow really hampered those Creole musicians. They no longer could play music with their white counterparts. They no longer could work with their white counterparts. So rather than quit music altogether, they said, you know what? Let's play music with different people at a different place. One of these places was a place called Storyville, New Orleans' red light district. It said a young Navy man would get off the boat of the Mississippi. He'd be handed a blue book with ladies' names in it. He might want to go hang out with the lady. He head to Storyville on Basin Street. If you can imagine him walk up to these buildings, he might hear some music being played by these newly outcasted Creole classical musicians playing music with these black blues players and black horn players, creating this new thing called jazz. So when someone asks you, what's jazz? Just tell them it's a perfect mix of the blues, classical music, and marching band music all mixed together.